Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Another look at Stephen Fulton's possible ascent to the super featherweight division, as his trainer believes O'Shaquie Foster will be his next fight. Derek Bozienis expects Stephen Fulton Jr. to next challenge WBC junior lightweight champion O'Shaquie Foster. Fulton revived his career under Ennis with his victory in February over Brandon Figueroa for the WBC featherweight title following the stoppage defeat inflicted by Naoya Inoue in July of 2023 when he conceded the WBC and WBO junior featherweight titles. The one-sided nature of that defeat meant that, after being considered Inoue's greatest test, observers of Fulton's career questioned whether he could ever truly recover. But following the victory over Figueroa, he is targeting a world title at a third weight. Stephen Fulton, 30, regularly trains alongside Jaron Ennis and Cuba's Andy Cruz in Derek Ennis's Philadelphia-based Next Champ Gym, which perhaps represents the most thriving gym on the East Coast of the U.S. The 31-year-old Foster regained his title following his victory in November in his rematch with Brazil's Robson Conceição. And when asked about Fulton, Bozy Ennis told Boxing Scene, O'Shaquie Foster, I think that's next. He's gonna move up. I think pretty soon. We was in the gym talking, and that's on the plate now. I think that's a good fight. That win really puts him on the map. Bigger and better things are coming his way now. So why move up to 130 so soon after arriving at 126? Is Stephen Fulton already struggling to make the weight, and he's decided he doesn't want to stay there long? I saw that Nick Ball, the WBA featherweight champion, expressed an interest in unifying titles with Stephen Fulton, that there are one or two decent-sized fights right there, but he wants to move up, and he wants to move up for O'Shaquie, who's not exactly a big ticket seller. Still a good fight, though. Bozienis, who trains him, said that win really puts him on the map. Bigger and better things are coming his way now. That's the correct thing to say, that he proved he's got plenty left. Plus, he noticed his style's different. I got him catching and moving. You see what he's doing. He did all the stuff he normally does, and he's right there catching, coming off the catch, then shifting and shift. Each time you see him, he's going to be better and better. Then, what he does, when he came to my gym, he started doing the stuff that Boots did. I told him, you've got to be staying around the gym, man. You're winning titles. Then, you're going to be out partying. He's been coming in the gym 3 times a week, even though he had no fights. He's coming to the gym. Good indicator of Stephen Fulton's commitment to stay on the straight and narrow. He being Stephen Fulton, said, man, I gotta stay doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? That's what happened. Everything changed. He's followed the script that we do. Work harder and stay in the gym all the time. Andy Cruz is another one. He works hard too. Cruz, incidentally, is on course to fight Hironori Mashari of Japan in an IBF eliminator for the lightweight title. I do agree with Bozy that a win over O'Shaquie Foster would make some waves, would create some ripples, and pound-for-pound talks would be in order if it happened that way, because that would make Stephen Fulton a 3-weight champion. I wasn't really impressed with his victory over Brandon Figueroa, because that's just the same guy he beat before. It's the same guy that he beat at 122, beating him again at 126. While it does indicate that Stephen Fulton still has it, that by itself isn't enough to get him on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. Now, beating O'Shaquie Foster, that would help. Though it's important to note that even if he does become a 3-weight champion, You know who else is a 3-weight champion? Emmanuel Navarrete.
He's not on the list either.
He's essentially already done what Stephen Fulton is trying to do. What perhaps may help Stephen Fulton along is that he's beaten more champions than Emmanuel. He has. He beat Angelo Leo for the WBO, Brandon Figueroa both times for the WBC. Now, if he moves up to a 3rd weight and beats O'Shaquie Foster, that makes it 3, arguably 4 world champions he would have taken belts from.
That's more than Emmanuel.
But does he actually beat O'Shaquie Foster? I really don't know. In what was Stephen Fulton's featherweight debut, he didn't look too hot. Looked a lot better with Brandon Figueroa, but like I said, that's just the guy that he beat before. And that's just a super bantamweight that moved up, like Stephen Fulton moved up.
So I don't want to read too much into it.
I think a win over O'Shaquie Foster at a 3rd weight is a stronger statement, a stronger message than beating Brandon again.
This fight would be a byproduct of the newfound alliance between Top Rank and the PBC that mean to do a lot more business moving forward. They've already made the Keyshawn Davis versus Edwin De Los Santos fight,
and now rumor has it they're trying to make this one. But we don't know under which banner the contest would take place. Is Top Rank going to outsource O'Shaquie to the PBC, or is the PBC going to outsource Stephen Fulton? Don't forget who the reigning champion here is.
It's O'Shaquie.
Is this going to be a Top Rank show like Davis versus De Los Santos is a Top Rank show? Because I think it matters who the house fighter is and whose house the contest is happening in.
Still early. We don't know.
We've got to see. But it is intriguing, and it is a fight of some consequence. I look forward to it if they can get it over the line.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, north of Super Feather, at welter, rumors abound. The long-rumored bout between Mario Barrios and Manny Pacquiao is in talks for the summer as early as July. Nothing can or will be announced until the conclusion of Pacquiao's Senate campaign in the Philippines. The election is May 12th.
Manny Pacquiao is 46 years old and approximately 4 years removed from the sport of boxing. It's been that long. Last in action in August of 2021 when he dropped a decision to Yordenis Ugas, then WBA champion. What is the point in him coming back to fight now?
If he is still enthralled in the world of politics in his native Philippines, why does he keep fighting? Why does he keep boxing? He's 46.
This rumor about a Pacquiao versus Barrios fight surfaces every so often, ever since Mario Barrios became WBC welterweight champion, so it's been about a year now.
We keep hearing about this, and we know that Bob Santos, who trains Mario Barrios, he's open to the fight for obvious reasons.
Because Manny Pacquiao is so obviously one of the most recognizable fighters of the last 15, 20 years, but he's 46, he's inactive, Ugas already beat him, so he figures that his fighter can do the same thing and make a bit of coin in the process, though how much?
Manny Pacquiao's drawing power has depreciated over time. He's not the same draw that he used to be, 4 years removed from the sport at 46, and even when he fought Ugas, the fight didn't sell that much. It just did little over 200,000.
So what do you think he'd do now with Mario Barrios, who's really not a draw himself? The whole goddamn fight feels like a waste of time to me, it does. I don't actually want to see a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao still fighting.
He looked old when he fought Ugas 4 years ago. He's not gonna look younger 4 years later. And in between now and then, he had a sparring session, an exhibition match.
He looked old in that fight too.
Worried that Manny Pacquiao's gonna get hurt?
Well, even if he wins, it's not good for anybody. Because let's say that Manny goes in there and he beats Mario Barrios and he becomes WBC champion. What do you think he's gonna do after that? Go unify with Brian Norman? Go unify with Boots Ennis?
No.
Even worse, that everybody's gonna go after him because he's 46 years old with an alphabet title. Not just the champions at 147, but the younger fighters moving up. Possibly Ryan, possibly Devin, possibly Teofimo, on the premise that Manny has a belt, that Manny has a title, and Manny has a name.
I would prefer that this fight doesn't happen. To me, it seems like a waste of time.
His presence in the welterweight division could have an adverse effect because nobody's going to want to do nothing since they're all targeting the old man, the low-hanging fruit.
Maybe if it weren't for an alphabet title, a world title, then I wouldn't care, because then they're not holding anything up. anything that needs to happen.
But I gather that the world title is a big part of selling this fight, isn't it? That here's Manny, 4 years removed from boxing, in his mid-40s, trying to become a world champion again. Otherwise, what is there to sell?
I'd rather they not do this.
And I'm going to assume that they would bill this as a PBC on Amazon pay-per-view. They're not going to give this one away. They're expecting you to pay $80 to see a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao against Mario Barrios.
Ridiculous.
Now, there is another fight that was recently announced that bears some semblance to the one we just talked about. Jake Paul versus former champion Julio Cesar Chavez, fresh out of rehab and ready to get punched in the mouth and disappoint his father. Now, in the case of Julio, he hasn't been out anywhere near as long as Manny Pacquiao. Unbeknownst to most, he's coming off of 2 consecutive victories, and he was last in action in July of last year opposite the ring Uriah Hall, who he won a unanimous decision against. Though it's important to note that that was a 6-rounder, and Uriah only had 1 professional boxing match. Just 1.
Needless to say that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is not what he used to be,
though he was never very much to begin with. A heavy burden placed on his shoulders, being the son of a boxing icon, a legend. He never lived up to the expectations set before him based on his namesake, and even now some question if he can live up to the expectations set before him as a former champion.
because he got beat by Anderson Silva, an MMA fighter, in June of 2021. A guy with 1 win and 1 loss.
When you go in there with one of these MMA guys that are crossing over, you're putting boxing on your back. Boxing's reputation, and he did not represent the sport well.
So there are people out there that don't expect him to now against Jake Paul, who's younger.
Being honest with you, I don't mind this one, because there's no alphabet title on the line. Neither Jake Paul or Julio are holding anything up by doing something with each other. It's a spectacle, and I take it for what it is.
Entertainment.
Nothing else, because like I said, there's no alphabet title on the line. They're not stopping anything from happening that needs to happen. So if they want to swap punches with each other for 10 rounds, go ahead. I guess a part of what makes me more accepting of this situation is on the undercard, we're going to be seeing Zurdo Ramirez take on his mandatory challenger, Uniel Dorticos.
That fight's been in the works for months, and I had no idea that they had been talking to Jake Paul and the good people at MVP about adding it to this show.
So I think the fighters now stand to make a bit more money than they would have if it were Golden Boy at the helm of the promotion. And of course, Golden Boy gets their cut of their fighter's purse without having to stake any of their own money. So that's free money for them by renting him out to Jake. Don't know who else is going to box on that undercard, but I do like this fight as it is a fight of some consequence. If Zurdo stays unified cruiserweight champion, what does he do after that? Does he go back to Saudi? Does he unify with Jai? Does he unify with the winner of Badu Jack versus Noel Mikhailian? Or does he do something else entirely, fight someone else entirely, like David Benavidez, whose team has been throwing his name around, and according to them, they've already had a dialogue about that fight.
They've been talking.
Beyond the Dorticos fight, there are questions that need answers. Uniel Dorticos, the former champion, he's 39, whereas Zurdo is 34.
Uniel is an orthodox fighter, whereas Zurdo is a southpaw. Uniel Dorticos is a knockout merchant. A good number of the fights he's won by way of violent knockouts. He's got a lot of reach and a big punch, even if he's up there in age.
What Zurdo's got to do is play him close to the chest and smother him, like Murat Gassiev did years ago in the World Boxing Super Series. When he stopped Uniel, that's what Zurdo has to do
To keep his belts.
It's an interesting situation in the cruiserweight division that didn't used to be this political. Unification matches were a lot easier to come by not that long ago, but things change.
This weekend, on the undercard of Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, former champion Chris Smith will be returning to action. And ahead of that fight, he said, the Badu Jack fight is the one I'd like the most. I'm probably one of the biggest fights outside of the champions because of what I've done at cruiserweight.
In tandem with his drawing power, that's the biggest appeal. He can actually sell. How realistic is it that Chris Smith could see himself fighting Badu Jack? For that to happen, Badu Jack has to beat Noel Mikhailian, and I'm not sure that he's going to.
Chris Billum-Smith is someone you want to pay attention to because he's worth some money.
But he is beatable. Richard Riakporhe beat him years ago, and Zurdo Ramirez beat him years later. That combination of a guy with some drawing power worth some coin could be worth something to the winner of Jack versus Mikhailian. Not just Badu Jack, but Noel as well.
Need I remind you that when Noel Mikhailian was still WBC champion, while under orders to fight Ryan Rosicki, he made a trip to the UK, made an appearance on Sky Sports to express his interest in unifying titles with Chris Billum-Smith. That if Noel wins, and he has to choose between fighting Jai Opetaia and fighting Chris, he might fight Chris.
He might fight Zurdo.
I don't think Noel Mikhailian is in it for the glory, that he's here to take on the toughest challenge. I think he's here to collect the biggest paycheck. Now, maybe that's a Jai Opetaia fight, but there are risks associated with that fight, whereas you can make safer money fighting someone else.
Fighting Chris Billum-Smith, and the Jai Opetaia fight will still be there. That unification match, or a Zurdo Ramirez unification match. And this is what I mean when I say that things are a bit more political in the cruiserweight division than they used to be, and unification matches are a bit harder to come by.
And everything I just said about Noel also applies to Badu Jack. If Badu Jack has to evaluate his chances against either Jai Opetaia or a Chris Billum-Smith or a Zurdo Ramirez, he might like those fights a bit more than the Jai Opetaia fight. Jai is a dangerous guy. They all know that.
I don't want to say he's a bogeyman, but I don't think Jai Opetaia is anybody's first choice in the cruiserweight division. Because it's in Saudi, it may pay out the most money, but it also yields the most risks. You stand the most chance of getting hurt, getting knocked out against Jai Opetaia. And a lot of times in situations like this one, we see fighters choose the safer route, the safer money.
To the point where you start to wonder, what if Jai can't get these guys in the ring? What if the remaining belt holders in the cruiserweight division all decide to go in a different direction? What is he going to do? Because I don't imagine it's getting easier to make cruiserweight, but at the same time, he doesn't have the physical dimensions of a heavyweight.
Who he reminds me of is Dmitry Bivol. Dimitri's not a big light heavyweight, you know, he's kind of lean. And the same applies to Jai Opetaia at cruiser.
Let's see, 6'1", 6'2", very lean.
Has everything it takes to dominate the cruiserweight division, but up there at heavy, I just don't know. In any event, we'll see what happens.
We'll see who fights him and who doesn't,
as this latest assembly line of cruiserweight title fights has been rolled out.